Hello and welcome everybody to tonight's webinar, applying for and getting your first role as a registered nurse. We are here because of the Newly Registered Nurses Network. I'm just waiting for my slides. Here they are. So applying for and getting your first job as a registered nurse. Big welcome from myself. My name is Kendall Andreasen. I am one of the professional leads here at the RCN. I'm the professional lead for acute and emergency care and defence nursing, but I also have the honour of looking after the Newly Registered Nurses Network, and they are actually your hosts this evening. If you're not already part of the Newly Registered Nurses Network, I'd love you to use the QR code at the bottom there and have a look at our web pages and hopefully sign up if you're a member of the RCN to become one of the network, because that means you can get early sight of all of the great things that we have planned for this year. We've got a number of webinars coming up over the year. The next one is on managing your finances after graduation, and then we have one in September about tackling your first revalidation, which I think is going to be really brilliant too. But tonight we are talking about applying for and getting that first job. And we are doing that because we've heard from the membership that actually some people are pretty nervous about this, and actually we've also heard reports that some students and newly registered nurses are finding it quite hard to get the jobs that they want. And so we want to make sure that the members understand what the job market looks like at the moment, and to make sure that they're in the strongest possible position to apply for that role and be successful. So we're hearing from a great lineup of speakers. We've got 3 speakers tonight that are going to give us talks over the next hour, and then we'll have time for questions. And actually, if we look at the next slide, it'll give you a rundown of what we are going to talk about. So next slide, please, Will. I am not seeing that next slide, but when it comes, or perhaps you can already see it, but I can ad lib. So we're first going to speak to Sarah Dodsworth, and I've got someone in the chat who can't hear anything. Perhaps you can deal with that. So yep, I can now see the slide. So we've got the first up is Sarah Dodsworth. She is the RCN Regional Director for the Northern Region, and she's going to talk to us about that job, what the job market looks like at the moment, and what the RCN is doing about some of those rumours that we're hearing about people struggling to get jobs. She's also going to tell us about her experience getting her first role and give some general top tips and advice. Then we're going to hear from Chloe Jackson. She is a newly registered nurse. She got her position in October 23, I believe. So we're going to hear her lived experience of how she got her first role and hear her top tips, which I'm really excited to hear about actually. And then we're going to hear from Julie Watkins. She is an RCN careers coach. So we're going to hear from her about all of the great stuff that the RCN can help you with when it comes to looking for your first role, applying for that role, tackling CV writing and your interviews and all things in between. So I'm really looking forward to each of those speakers. So each of our speakers, as you can see by the very precise timings on that slide, are going to speak for 12 minutes, which will leave plenty of time for a Q&A. And so I'd love you to use the Q&A function that you can see on your screen to pose any questions that you have to us, and we'll try and get through as many of those as possible. Some of you are already using the chat as well, so feel free to use the chat to introduce yourselves or to make any comments as we go. We'd love to hear from them. So without further ado, I will hand over to Sarah. Thanks very much all.
Thank you. I'll just wait for the slides, but I'll introduce myself while they come up. So as I said, my name's Sarah Dodsworth. I'm the Regional Director for RCN England, Northern Yorkshire and Humber, and I'm going to give a few top tips about applying. But before I do that, I'm just going to share my experience, because we've heard the rumours, and you will have heard the rumours, that there are no jobs for students. And whilst that's not strictly true, my own experience when I qualified, and it was back in the early 90s, possibly some of you were not even born then, there were no jobs for any of the cohort that I qualified with, and I trained in Bradford at the time. And so some people were offered, as was known then, nursing auxiliary posts, but now will be nursing support worker posts, and others of us were essentially made redundant. And because our accommodation was tied with the jobs, because we were employed in those days, we were also homeless. So my first job was in a care home in Bradford, where I had the dizzy heights of being known as deputy matron, mainly because I was a registered nurse. And then I applied for jobs in London, because whilst there were no jobs in the north, there were jobs round and about in the southeast. And ironically, I was able to secure a post at Guy's Hospital as a newly qualified nurse without even an interview, because they were just wanted people to go and work in London. So I moved lock, stock and barrel down to London. Friends bet that I'd last 6 months, and I was there for over 20 years before relocating back to the north, to my hometown really. I think you can probably tell I am from the north, and I came home. But that was my experience, not to have a job when you were registered and to be offered a post as a, what we'd say now, nursing support worker, really wasn't what we'd trained for. And it was quite scary times, and some of you may well find yourself in that position, but you may not if you follow the top tips and all of the information that we share with you today. But my first tip is, when the cohort posts come out, please do apply for the posts with the cohort. Some of the students who missed out on roles and opportunities last year thought that March was too early to apply and show an interest in posts, given that we're not going to be qualifying and getting the PIN number till September/October. But they missed out on the opportunities of applying with their cohort, and then found themselves nearer the time having to scrabble around along with the rest of other people who were not applying for newly qualified posts, along with everybody else. It is your best chance to secure the post in the hospital where you may have done most of your training. And you will be put in preferences, and I'll move to my second point. It's likely that across the country you may be offered a job that is not your first choice, and it may also be with an employer who's not your first choice. But given the job market, and I'm going to come on to a regional focus in just a little while, that may be your best bet if you want to secure a role in the NHS as a newly qualified nurse. And I've written there, the NHS is not the only gig in town. So some people who when I qualified to work in a care home as a deputy matron, but some care homes and some care home companies will make an offer to newly qualified nurses of a preceptorship and a settling in period to go work in different sorts of environments. So not just care homes, but prisons. GP practices are also looking, and there may be some community posts that are not NHS but are with alternative providers, where you may find roles that are offering a preceptorship programme and an induction for newly qualified nurses. So I would say keep your mind open and keep your options wide, and that way you will have more chance of securing a role, your first newly qualified role. And it's very exciting, it's very scary as well, because this is the time when you'll be newly qualified and you will be really glad of your RCN membership at that point, because we will be able to continue to provide you with professional support, and should you find any issues, representation and support too. So keeping your RCN membership is absolutely crucial, particularly in your first roles. So just remember, apply for the post with your cohort. It is your best chance. Now, the employment picture is not the same around the whole of the country. I did some scoping ahead of this webinar, and I am just going to look on my phone for my notes so that I can give a bit of an overview of where you may be. So for those who are training in the Southwest and are looking for posts in the Southwest, there is a thought that for this year, it's probably likely that you will have an interview process, and that will probably be in May. And if there are any issues, it's hoped they can be resolved before September. So if students are unsuccessful at the local or preferred trust, they will be placed in a regional pool and then offered remaining vacancies. So they're doing a pool situation in the southwest. That's not quite the case with every single region either. So in the southeast, in trusts where there are arrangements for jobs for newly qualified nurses, they're being held over now as vacancies for students until they complete their programme. And so there are also band 5 jobs that are being advertised currently in most of the trusts, as well as in the independent sector in that area. That's a
Sarah,
sorry,
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. We've got quite a few questions in the chat just asking about what applying with your cohort means, and I just thought we'd had quite a few, so I thought I might just interrupt you, sorry, just to get a little bit more clarification on that. Thank you.
So the cohort is the group in which you train. So most schools of most universities will say this is now the time to apply for jobs, and you will apply at the same time as everyone else who you are training with. So it's the cohort with which you are doing your nurse training. So if you started, I don't know, let's say in September, I'll just use a year out of September 1984, years and years ago, you would be applying along with everyone else who started their nurse training in September 1984. So that's a cohort. The people who you did your training with are your cohort. And a lot of universities call it cohort applications, but others may call it something different, but that's the language I've been used to in the north. So hopefully that clarifies for people. So applying with your set, really. Am I getting some nods? And
I think that was very clear. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So I'm seeing some thumbs up. Thank you all. In the West Midlands, there are still posts being held in most trusts. And they're holding vacancies until the September deadline and the times when people are qualifying. The location may not be necessarily what's wanted, because, for instance, in the Black Country and Coventry, it could be tricky, but in Shropshire and Worcester, the situation is better. But people may still be able to get a job, probably not your first choice. Or some will and some won't, be prepared to be open. In the East Midlands, there's jobs across the East Midlands for those qualifying, but again, it might not be in the location you wish. And in the Northwest, they're experiencing a limited number of students not being able to secure jobs. That's the thought within the NHS, but there do appear to be significant numbers of posts around the independent sector, in care homes, in communities, in the settings I alluded to earlier. In Northern and Yorkshire and Humber, which are my two regions, the situation is more worrying. Although they have held posts, many did over-recruit last year, thinking that people would leave, but people haven't left in the numbers they anticipated, so there may well be some pressure on students there, and it may be that you're looking on a wider field in the north. That position is very similar in Scotland. There are posts, but again, it may not be a first choice. So when I say that position similar in Scotland, I mean to the rest of the country, not the north and Yorkshire and Humber. And Wales say the same. Northern Ireland, again, posts for people, but they may not correlate with your preference unless across the piece you're doing a mental health course or learning disability course, because most people are still getting the preferred options in those fields. So in summary, the picture is bleak in some places in the north, but there are also posts within the independent sector. So what we've been doing across the RCN is speaking to directors of nursing and asking them to hold posts around the organisation ready for newly qualified nurses where they've been, because you will see on NHS Jobs, if you ever look there, that's the website for where all the NHS jobs are posted. Some band 5 jobs are asking for experience. I can assure you that the RCN are challenging every single one of those, because a band 5 job should be suitable for a newly qualified nurse. It is an entry level grade, and that's how it should be managed, not as if you're already experienced. So that's one thing the RCN are doing, as well as speaking to directors of nursing. There's organisations called ICBs, and they have oversight across the whole of the NHS. There's a number of them in England, and we're speaking to the workforce planners and developers in those areas so that we can be assured that everywhere is totally aware of the potential challenges that students may face. But there are steps that you can take to make sure that you are in the top running for these posts, and we're going to be hearing about those from Chloe and from others in a short while. But in summary, the NHS is not the only gig in town. There are other posts that will be suitable for newly qualified nurses, and some of you may already have an eye on GP practices, for instance, or prisons, and I would strongly encourage you to think much wider than the NHS. Nursing is a massively exciting profession. In Yorkshire and Humber region, we're planning a student placement for 2nd and 3rd years, so it can broaden the depth of nursing to see that there are other opportunities, because nursing isn't just in acute or in a hospital by the bedside. There are lots of other things that you could do, and there'll be the careers person speaking later who will be able to signpost to some of those ideas. But I would like to wish you all good luck. Nursing is an excellent job. I've loved being a nurse. I still identify as a nurse, and although I don't touch patients, I am still a nurse through and through. It's the most exciting job in the world, and the career opportunities once you've got past your first post are absolutely extraordinary. So I wish you all good luck with your applications and with applying for your posts. Good luck, everybody, and I look forward to welcoming you as registered nurses, not only to the RCN, because you will keep your membership, it's a brilliant thing to do, but also just to the profession that is nursing. Thank you, Kendall.
That was lovely. Thank you, Sarah. It's really interesting to hear what's going on across the country, because that's something we don't all get to hear about very often. And we know that that's also happening in very similar things also happening in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland too. Sarah obviously focuses on England there. So it stands to reason that we should be applying those rules to if you live in all 4 countries of the UK. And there was some great reviews there with lots of claps and hearts. So well done, Sarah. Thank you so much. It's also great to see how many people are on the call. We've got nearly 300, and to see so many people participating in the chat. So thanks again, all. I am going to hand over now to Chloe for some lived experience and top tips from her. Thanks, Chloe.
Thank you, Kendall. Yeah, perfect. So hello everyone, good evening. My name's Chloe. First of all, I just want to thank the Newly Nurse Network for inviting me to present today. A quick disclosure, I'm neurodivergent, so you'll probably expect some blips along the way, so please bear with me on that. Yeah, my name is Chloe, and I registered as a nurse in October 2023, so still a fairly new nurse, but I think my colleagues would say to me that I'm not a newly qualified nurse anymore. I'm not a baby nurse anymore. I've reached sort of, if you're talking in baby terms, I'm probably now a teenager, not quite an adult nurse, but yes, so I'm also at the minute training to do my RCN learning rep, so I'm really enjoying that as well. Can we have next slide, please? So just a little bit about myself. I won't bore you too much, but I'll just go through quickly a bit about myself. So I did my training, nurse training in adult nursing at Robert Gordon University in Aberdeen. And originally I had planned to do a 4-year dual course, so it was going to be adult and children and young people's nursing. But halfway through, I decided that I was ready to go out into the world of nursing, and I exited with my adult degree in adult nursing. During that time, when I was a student, I was quite active. I sat on the student committee for Scotland, and you can see there in the photo my first time up on the podium at Glasgow's Congress. So I got quite involved with the RCN from a student. Some of you may be aware of my blog and my podcast, Jack on her Mac. That's kind of the name I go by. And I started blogging about my journey as a student nurse, about all my placements and things, to help other people find out what job they wanted to potentially go in, and also to give people heads up on what to expect from placements before they go out into their placements, because it can be quite daunting. I guess a lot of you will be sitting there just now thinking, I have absolutely no idea where I'm going to go, what area is going to be of interest to me. Don't panic. Don't panic at all, because you have plenty of time to figure it out. And I'll explain the journey that I've had in my next slide, and how I got to which profession I chose within nursing, which specialty I chose. Oh, sorry, can we go back? Thank you. Sorry. So I also founded SUNO, Support and Understanding for Neurodivergent Nurses, and I've added CO to the end because I've invited everybody, all the other healthcare professionals in, and yeah, so that was also part of my student journey as well. And from all of those extracurricular things that I got involved with as a nurse, a student nurse, I was very fortunate to receive Student Nurse of the Year in Scotland quite recently as well. So there's a wee picture there of when I registered as a nurse and I got my NMC pin. I was very proud of myself there with my wee hat on. So yeah, I decided to go into theatre nursing. And I'll explain that in a wee second as well. Can I have next slide, please? So yeah, so my first post is in theatres, and I didn't expect it at all. My very last placement was in theatres. I was in neurology theatres, and when I first found out that I was going to be going to theatres, I thought to myself, I don't think I'm going to enjoy this at all. I was quite worried about going to theatres. Simply because I've got ADHD, and I thought, well, I'm going to be standing here doing nothing. I'm going to be really bored, and I'm not going to know what I'm doing. But actually, it was the best experience of my whole nursing journey as a student nurse. And I had applied for the newly qualified nurse programme within NHS Grampian, and I had put in my 3 choices that I'd put in for my newly nurse post was ICU, because I'd had a placement there and I'd really enjoyed my ICU placement, a community placement, and there was a specific ward that I had hoped to go to, and it's one of the wards that I worked quite a lot on when I was a healthcare support worker, because as you'll know, obviously, being a student nurse, the bursary and things within Scotland, we're very fortunate of that, but you have to work in order to pay for your bills and things. So I also find that having that opportunity to do a healthcare support worker role enabled me to get more experience, and also explore different wards and things to help me get an idea of what I wanted to do. So community was one of them, and then oncology was another one, and I hadn't actually had an experience in oncology before, but my grandmother was on that ward, and that was one of the ones that kind of hit home to me that I thought I would quite like to do. And then I had this placement at theatres, and I thought, goodness gracious, what an amazing experience this has been. And I changed my choices so many times. It was actually a backup plan having the newly qualified nurse post, because I had actually had my mind set on doing a PhD. But unfortunately I wasn't successful with that. So my backball was this newly qualified nursing post, and I was successful with a theatre post, which I'm absolutely loving so much. And I've now gone on to do my anaesthetic training, which I love. And again, I wouldn't have chosen that for myself. I thought it was a bit too scary, but actually it's the best thing ever. It chose me, and I'm so glad that it did choose me, because I absolutely love it. And I think it just shows you that you might have something in your mind that you think you're going to do, but actually, sometimes it doesn't work out like that. Sometimes the place or the area chooses you, and you just find that you fit into that place. And I think that's really important. Don't have expectations of yourself. Just go with the flow. Enjoy the experiences that you're having as a student. So when I did apply, so my experience of applying for the post, so in Scotland, I don't know if it's the same in other counties, but basically you apply for the newly nurse post, and you put your options in. Then you receive a notification that you've been successful for an interview, and you prepare for your interview. And some of the things that I had prepared, I prepared answers for these questions. Questions like, why the NGN program? Why have you applied for this? Why should the employer give you a post? And really think about the things that sell you. What can you offer? What kind of things can you offer? Use examples from your placement, or if you've been a healthcare support worker. These are things that I had prepared answers for. So it was actually just coming to the end of COVID. So my interview was online. It was a very quick interview, and very easy questions. There'll not be a question there that you don't know the answer to. And whatever trust that you're going for, have a think about some of the values that those trusts, adopt, and try and fit some of those buzzwords in. So yes, that was my experience of my first nursing post, and I'm loving it so much. There's so much to learn, so many amazing people to meet. Yeah, that was my experience of my first post. Can we go on to the next slide, please? So yes, tips for your interviews. So yes, mine was held online. It could be in person. Now that we're through COVID, hopefully you'll have the opportunity to meet face to face. Be prepared with some answers, like I was saying there just now, in your head or on paper. Maybe carry out some research about the job area that you've applied for. And you never know, you might end up changing your area like I did. Jot down some typical interview questions and plan out how you might deliver these answers. Practice. Have a friend or a colleague or a family member go through the questions with you, and be that interviewer. If you get stuck at any point, which sometimes we do, we need time to process the question or how we're going to answer it, take a little drink of water, or say something like, oh, that's a very good question. I think I need more time to process this one, or please could you repeat the question? It just buys you a little bit more time to kind of think about what you might want to say, or you could even say, would you mind if we come back to that one at the end? There's no hard and fast rules about how to do an interview. It's your interview at the end of the day. So the interviewer wants to make you feel comfortable. Demonstrate your enthusiasm. Obviously, we're in nursing because we care about people, and the majority of our answer will be, if someone asked you, why do you want to be a nurse, is that, it's because we care and we want to do the best for people. Jazz your answer up to make it a little bit different so that you stand out from everybody else. And on the day of the interview, it might be advisable to arrive a little bit earlier so that you've got a bit of time just to get into the environment and relax, so that you're not rushing and stressing about your interview. Most importantly, be yourself and embrace the experience. Interviews are quite nerve-wracking, but we're there to sell ourselves and get that first job. And most of all, take a deep breath, something I'm not doing right now, but try not to panic if you're nervous. It's absolutely normal. It means that you care about getting a job. So and the interview should understand that. Next slide, please. Okay, so things that you might want to consider for your interview that you might want to jot down. You might want to jot down what it's been like working as a student nurse and the invaluable experiences that you've gained while you've been a student nurse. You might even want to use the Gibbs reflective model to think about having a reflection on, your student nurse journey and how you might want to consolidate the journey that you've had into your NGN post and your first NGN post, and demonstrating to the interviewer how you might do this. I think that would demonstrate quite a lot of enthusiasm to come with a reflective piece. Actually, I think that would be quite a nice thing to do. Talk about it. Yeah, talk about your experiences. Be specific about what you've learned. Name some examples of things that you've maybe done as a student. How am I for time, Kendall?
We're starting to run over a little, so
okay, sorry, that's fine.
That's okay, a couple of minutes.
That's fine. And yes, just mention some standout moments. Okay, next slide, please. Where are we at? And yeah, I'm not going to list all of these. You might want to take a photo, but think about some of the skills that you've had as a student nurse and how you might take that into your first post. Next slide, please. Extra points. So things you might want to consider are going to occupational health, getting yourself prepared if you require additional learning requirements or whatever that might be. If you might need to go and see about your skin or whatever you think you might need to thrive in your post, it's nice to just prepare yourself by going to OH and being ready for your first post. Now, I'm not sure what it's like in other areas, but within Scotland, we do a Flying Start programme, which is reflective pieces, and we have a mentor or a preceptor. It's important that you actually make sure that you have one of these. I didn't have one of these really. I kind of taught myself my job, and I should have at the start really said, I need somebody that I can go to, somebody that's experienced and able to guide you in your first post, and that'll set you in good stead for your future as a nurse. Don't be hard on yourself. It's so easy for us to be hard on ourselves as students and as newly qualified nurses. It is scary when you're first handed the keys and you're told that, you're in charge today, off you go. I remember my first time getting the controlled drug keys. Me and my friend, who's also a newly qualified nurse, we had to count them, and we were on our own. There was nobody else here. We were in charge of we were taking lead on the theatre, and we felt it was illegal going into the cupboard. And we're both standing there laughing because it felt illegal for us just to be going in to the cupboard with the keys. And now look at us on a daily basis. We have to do that. Enjoy the journey most of all, and you'll have a blast. And just remember why you have decided to be a nurse and embrace that. There's a few other things. I think also use the resources that the RCN have on their website, which our colleagues tonight will share with you. I don't think I've got anything else written on here. And also I would recommend you go into my podcast and my blog as well. It's got a lot of information and experiences and reflection about, my journey so far, and it might be of help to you. Next slide, please. don't know where the next slide is. I'm sorry, I'm running over, Kendall. Here's me
It's
thinking
quite all right.
I didn't think I'd have enough to say, and I've just gone on and off on a tangent. I don't
Do we have
know.
the next slide, Will?
Don't know if I can do it. Did that work?
No.
How about now?
No. Technology, eh?
The next slide, I can see the next slide, so it's just a take-home message. I just wanted to say, where you go next is not your end destination. Your difficulties don't define you. You can do anything you set your mind to. Anything is possible, and be brave. And it's a Christopher Robin quote, which is quite close to my heart. But yes, good luck, everybody, and please do get in touch if you want to ask anything else. I've got my handles and stuff at the end, but I'm not sure if anyone can see. Don't know what's
there they are.
happened to
Got them.
there. Perfect. Well, thank you for having me.
That was completely wonderful. Better than we could have ever expected. Thank you so much, Chloe.
Thank you.
There were so many actionable tips. I was going to follow up with some of mine, but I feel like that's pointless now because
oh no,
no, wonderfully pointless because you covered everything, and there were some funnies in there too. So thank you so much. Okay. A recording of this webinar will be up online on the RCN YouTube channel and also on the newly registered Nurses Network pages. So a few people have been asking in the chat for a copy of your slides, Chloe, because they're so good. No, so they'll see them on the recording, but maybe we'll see if we can send them out too. Brilliant. Of course. Okay, I will. Over. Not at all. Totally worth it. So I will though move us on to Julie. Thanks, Julie.
Hi everyone, I'm delighted to be here and speak to you all this evening. I'm going to quickly go through what we can offer because I'm really I know that there's lots of questions there, so I really want to make sure we try and have enough time to get through them. So yeah, I'll just quickly go through. If you can go to the next slide, please. So just to give you a bit of an overview of if you're a member of the RCN, how we can help you. So firstly, you know, if you're applying for jobs, maybe you're not getting shortlisted, we can give you some email feedback. So you can email your CV to us, you can email your supported statement, along with a copy of the job details, and we can give you some feedback on that. We also offer telephone career coaching. So perhaps you're undecided on which direction you're going, or maybe there's some other kind of challenges. You know, that's definitely something that we can work through one-to-one sessions and help you with some of that decision making. It's really important, you know, as coaches, we can't tell you what to do. Sometimes I wish I had a magic wand, but unfortunately we don't. So it's really important that you come to those sessions and you've done your research, you know the practicalities, and we can help you then to navigate those next steps. We also offer one-to-one telephone interview coaching. So I know somebody put in the chat around help with interviews, where we can help you one-to-one. So you would book an appointment with RCN Direct, and again, you'd email us over the job details, and we can try and just go through and preempt what kind of questions might come up. It's an opportunity to rehearse that with us then. So this is just a bit of an overview of how we can help you. So if you can go to the next slide, please. Everything I speak about today will be online. So that's our website address. So you don't have to perhaps rush and put everything down. It is all online. You've got your designated resources there that we've created for you. So everything will be on there. You've got sample CVs, sample supporting statements, and this is all, you know, accessible. You have to be a member to access some of the samples as well. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to go through some top tips. We can go straight on to the next slide, please, Will. And firstly, you know, looking at different roles and different pathways. Have a look at the online resources. This is just a little bit of a picture. If you go to the next slide, Will, just to give you a snapshot of how the RCN can help you. So we've got clinical guides. So if there's a particular field you're interested in, you know, go to the clinical topics, have a look what resources we've got on that. There's also RCN Learn. So if you're looking at perhaps maybe you feel you've got a bit of a gap in applying for a job, is there a course or some online learning that you can access through RCN Learn? The library have brilliant subject guides, that will include journals, books, resources, so utilise the RCN library. And then you've got health careers, so that's an external site, but again it just gives you an opportunity to look at, well, what is out there, what roles are available. Next slide please. And then you've got the nursing careers pathway resource, so that is an RCN resource, and if we click on the next slide you'll see this is how the pages look. It's an opportunity to go through, and perhaps if you want to know more about working in general practice to perhaps working as an advanced nurse practitioner, you know, maybe that's your goal. The nursing career resource can help you just to navigate, well, what qualifications will I need? What kind of tips are there to help me to get to where I want to get to? There's blogs and there's podcasts, so it's a really interactive resource, so have a look at that as well. Next slide please. I appreciate I'm going through this quickly. I'm just trying to get to the Q&As for you. We've got our own Career Crossroads pages. If you go to the next slide. So this again, if the website address I give you at the start, you know, RCN careers, if you look at on there, you'll find these pages there. What we've done, we've also given you a link, so the bottom right, you can see the nursing career pathway, which is the one I just spoken about. We talk about kind of the 4 pillars of nursing, so maybe you're feeling a little bit stuck or you want a bit of inspiration, have a little look at those just to see, you know, it's not always your hands-on nursing roles, you know, there's so many different opportunities, and that's the wonderful thing about being a nurse then, you know, there's so many different opportunities and varied roles out there. Next slide, please. And again, just to touch upon the RCN forums, so these are a fabulous resource, I think. There's lots of professional leads. If you want to know something specifically about a particular field of nursing, have a look at the forums, join them. It's an opportunity to connect with other professionals in that field if you've got any kind of particular questions, or even get in touch with the RCN professional lead as well. And if you click on the next slide, I'll just give you an overview of what those pages, the forums and networks list looks like. So there's so much there to help you just to navigate. Where do I go? What do I do if you're not sure already? Next slide, please. So firstly, again, yeah, prepare your CV in advance. That's another kind of tip that you can do. This is a little bit of an overview of our career CV writing pages. If you need inspiration, look at our sample CVs. Again, you can download these. It is a member-only resource. But if you're struggling, you know, well, where do I begin? What do I write? That's something we can help you with. And then again, you can see there, do you want your CV checked? That's how you would email it to us, and we can have a look at it for you. But it's a nice bit of a self-reflection tool as well, I think, writing your CV, because then you suddenly think, oh my gosh, I've already got lots to be able to offer somebody. So it's a nice exercise to do. Next slide, please. Always make sure it's the right role for you. I think, you know, it's something that we kind of as career coaches then, does it align with perhaps your strengths, your interests and your values? If there's a little bit of conflict with some of those, that's where we find when we speak to perhaps nurses then is, you know, maybe it's not aligning with a value or you're not utilising your strengths. So always have a think about, well, how is this role going to align with me, as well as, am I the right person for that job? What support or preceptorship will you get? These are questions that you can ask. You can either ask informally or formally, and have a think about, you know, what kind of shift patterns or working conditions do you need? Do you need any kind of adjustments in terms of your health? these are all things to perhaps just think about when you're applying for jobs. And again, it's something that career coaching can help you with in terms of your values, your strengths, or even looking at, well, perhaps what roles might suit me. Then have a look at our online pages for that as well. Next slide, please. And as part of that research, you know, you're going to be looking at the job adverts, the job descriptions, the person specifications carefully. This will always be the core part of when you're applying for jobs. You're going to need to make sure that your statements or your CV align with the job you're applying for, particularly making sure you're meeting that essential criteria. They're going to need to be tailored. If you're not meeting or giving examples, then usually that's where people fall down. So that, again, that's something that we can help with. If you're not getting shortlisted, let's take a look at your statement or CV to see if we can help you with that. Again, if you're applying for jobs, make sure you know about the trust, make sure you know what services they're providing, what their values are, what their vision. All of this can just help going into that interview or on your application to show that you've really taken the time and you've done your homework on them. Next slide, please. And then plan an informal visit. You can just click through all these. Thanks, Will. We always recommend doing this. So if you haven't had a placement there, or you haven't had an insight, I know that Sarah said at the beginning that sometimes a job might not be your first choice, but just an informal visit can help you to clarify, well, could I still see myself working here? Because it is still important. And it's a chance just to break the ice, and it can help with the application as well. And the next slide, please. And then that's the website address as well. So that will take you to everything I've spoken about today, and you can have a look at that designated area. And that's our email address if you needed to email anything specifically to me. Happy for you to email us as well. But I'm going to hand you back over to Kendall now. Thank you very much, everyone.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Julie. What incredible services you and your team provide.
I know.
It's really brilliant.
I'm proud
of
what we do.
That's so great. That's so nice. So I will tackle these questions quick fire because we've got very little time left and lots of questions. And I've kind of grouped them all. So I think most people are concerned about standing out in that CV. So what are the top tips in standing out in your CV to make so that you get through the sift essentially? And I think you touched on that a little bit, Julie, but is it too soon for me to come straight back to you?
No, it's okay. I've had a glass of water or a sip of water, as Chloe was saying, isn't it? Take some time.
Yes, brilliant.
No, I think it just in terms of top tips is making sure it's tailored. If you're going to send a generic CV out, an employer will know it's generic. It's not a one size fits all. You really need to take time and tweak it. And it's not a huge effort. It'll usually be perhaps your personal profile, maybe your key skills and achievements, but just making sure that you're tailoring it. And it's only on 2 pages as well. They'd probably be my top 2 tips.
Good. Length is really important, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because otherwise the information will get lost. So an employer's not going to read through 10 pages. There'll be too much going on, and the important bits then will get lost. So two pages and tailor it.
In addition to that, I would say that alongside submitting your CV and hopefully a nice supporting statement, reach out to the team, because the team might be involved, probably would be involved in that sift. And if they've spoken to you and you've gone out of your way to speak to the team, to the nurse in charge or whatever, and then your name comes up on the list, they might think, oh yeah, I remember her. So I think that's always a good shout, isn't it? And that way you can you also get to know what the team's like, and that's important, because you want to get a job, but you also want to get a job somewhere where you feel comfortable and you like the team. So That's really good. And we have had a few questions about sample supporting statements. I think that sort of thing might be a bit new to some people. Do we have some of those on the website?
Yeah, we do. We have sample supporting statements. You have to be a member to access them because it's a member-only resource. But yeah, you can go in, you can download it. There's one for newly registered nurses. There's one for a nurse as well as one for healthcare support worker. So it should kind of meet everybody then, or most scenarios.
Thank you so much. Great. So I'll pick on someone else, shall I? Thank you, Julie. So lots of people are saying that on some feedback is that they don't have enough experience. And so people are concerned that because they don't have an experience, they're not getting the jobs that they want. And they're asking how they can get that experience if they can't get the job. It's a bit of a chicken and egg thing. I don't know if Sarah's got any thoughts on that.
The first thing to say is we are speaking to employers to say band 5 roles shouldn't be asking for experience. So that's the first thing. In terms of getting the experience, it could be that you can use other experience that you've had. So if you've worked as a healthcare support worker during your training, you could be relying on that as experience in the workplace. And you could also be relying on other more lived and life experience to help you to supplement that that CV. It's likely though that you've probably been rejected at the point where they're looking for the experience on the application form. And I would strongly encourage everyone on the call to call and really try and get feedback. And feedback yourself about that experience. So it might be the HR department you call to request that feedback. But if you've spoken to the team ahead and shown an interest and you've got a contact on the ward or department or area, then give them a ring and see if they can give you some feedback. One of the things though that where if employers are inundated with applications, if you've not exactly followed the request as they ask, you will not be shortlisted. So one of the things that people commonly fall down on is if they've asked for a supporting statement and you've done a CV and you only send your CV, you're not going to get shortlisted if you've not provided that supporting statement. And likewise, the opposite is true. Some people will have you fill in an application form and their supporting statement and ask for a CV too. So make sure you follow every single request, because otherwise it's seen that you can't follow simple instructions.
Good tips. I've had some really frustrating job applications where you feel like you're just repeating the same information over and over, but if that's what they're requesting, I guess that's what we've got to go for. Thank you, Sarah. That's really good. And I might just keep you for a second. If somebody is worried, they have struggled to get their first job, and they're wondering how long will it be until it affects their PIN if they keep being unsuccessful. Did that make sense?
That does make sense. So
thanks.
Revalidation happens every 3 years, and you have to incorporate a certain amount of practice hours in that time. And I can't remember off the top of my head how
450.
many. 400. Thank you very much, Kendall. So 450 hours, and you can do that in a year very easily. So I would say just keep trying, keep applying, look for alternatives as well. And in the end, some people may need to think about having an excess commute for those first 6 months. So I would be saying, if there is nothing really locally, can you tolerate for a short while for that first job something that's a bit onerous that you wouldn't normally want to consider, but just so you can get a foot in the door? And it's not brilliant, and this isn't the situation we should be in. And we also know, I saw a comment in the chat, I think, about NHSE. The idea of disbanding that is to release more money for frontline posts. So you would hope that it would improve the prospects overall. But we're still really at the early days of that. So nothing much is changing. But we do have to say that we know there's an austerity, even though we're not using those words. We do know employers are trying to cut their cloth and make savings, but at the moment they should be doing that from corporate savings, not nursing and clinical. So we are keeping an eye on that, and where we're seeing that, we're going into challenge from the regionals and countries just to hold them to account.
Really useful to know. Thank you, Sarah. That's great. So we are running horribly short on time. We've had quite a few questions about interviews that worries a few people, and top tips on how to stand out in interviews. And instead of directing this at one of my colleagues, I might try and tackle that in the interest of time. So I think if the interview is in person, you want to go in with a big smile and some really good eye contact to make sure that they remember you and they notice that you're engaged and interested in being there. And for me, I think sometimes interviews can be obviously very nerve-wracking, and you can do all the prep that you want and have all of your answers in your head, but actually when you get to the day, they all get jumbled, and that can be a real problem. So for me, when I have something that I'm particularly nervous about, I like to consider what my top 3 messages are. So in this instance, it would be your top 3 skills, and it's really easy to remember 3 things, isn't it? So have those top 3 things and make sure whatever questions are asked at some point during that interview, you get across those top 3 messages, because then if it does all get a bit too much and you get tongue-tied and you can't think of a particular piece of experience that you wanted to draw on for the interview, you've at least made sure that they understand what your top 3 skills are and what you are going to bring to that job. Unless anyone else has any real key bits of wisdom from the speakers on how to stand out at interviews, I might have to close there. Chloe, you've got 30 seconds or something.
Okay, I was just going to say, dress to impress.
Nice.
And use humour. Use a bit of humour. That lightens the mood a wee bit.
I love that. Yeah, really good. Really, really good. Okay, well, I'm afraid we're going to come to a close soon. I've just got a few things to say. Firstly, thank you so much to all of the team and the speakers tonight. So our 3 speakers did such a wonderful job. I hope you all agree. But we've also got a lot of people working behind the scenes. We have got Caitlin, Jitan, Ben and Will, who've all been working very hard behind the scenes to make sure everything runs smoothly. We have had a few technical issues, and I'm sorry about those, but hopefully all the messages got across. I'd just like to draw your attention to 5 reasons why you might join the Royal College of Nursing. So we've opened up this webinar to members and non-members alike, and I just wanted to remind you that if you are a member, you do get lots of professional development, lots of workplace support, a really huge legal team, in fact the biggest of any trade union in the UK, and those brilliant member support services that Julie mentioned, and careers advice. So do consider joining us, and you can do so at that QR code. I'd like to also draw your attention to the evaluation form. That is in the chat or the QA, and will also be sent to you via different means afterwards. So please do tell us what you thought of tonight, because that's how we improve things. Look forward to our future webinars on finances after graduation and evaluation, but also our colleagues in the education team are also going to run a series of 3 webinars on this subject. So it's going to be really in-depth about writing that CV and doing that interview, and it sounds like that you guys would be really interested in that, so keep an eye out for those. I'm going to signpost you to our brilliant newly registered nurse handbook and RCN Learn, which was mentioned by Julie earlier too. And just say a huge thank you for joining us tonight. I'm overwhelmed by how many people we've had. Please do join us in the Newly Registered Nurses Network. If you do have any more questions, I can see a few hands up. Unfortunately, we're not able to bring you into the call, but do put them in the chat or the QA, and it'll be really useful for us to use those questions and answer them at another time via a different webinar. So again, thank you all so much, and good luck with your CV writing and your interviews and the rest of your beautiful career. Thanks.